Hello, welcome to the End Evil podcast. This is Chris Jansen, and evil is the destruction of freedom. End Evil podcast was inspired by the book The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke, and that's a book that you can pick up for free. You can download the PDF. It's been a while since I shared that link, but if you just type in The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke, it'll come right up. And I'm sure my guest today, Shane Radliff from Liberty Under Attack and VONU, the podcast will have some advice on where to find either that book or many other priceless books about freedom and liberty. And that's partly what we're going to talk about today. What's up, Shane? Thanks for joining me.
There we go. Hey, Chris. Thanks for inviting me on to chat. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a year and a half or something like that. I don't remember when we chatted last on your podcast, but I always appreciate reconnecting. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, fantastic. We must have met like, shoot, I'm trying to remember what year. I'm thinking it was somewhere between 2006 and 2007, maybe somewhere in there.
Well, maybe not that far back. I wasn't even in the. I wasn't in. I guess it would like, maybe 16 or 17. Yeah, maybe
No,
six.
yeah,
Maybe
no, it was
2016.
2012 or 2013 or somewhere in there. Maybe no, I don't know.
Probably. I don't think so. Maybe 2015 at the earliest. I would say probably.
I guess I'm getting
Yeah,
so old. I'm like,
but
it was
no,
50.
I get it. No, I have.
No.
No, I have a
No,
hard
you're
time
right.
myself keeping on track of calendars and clocks and such. So,
Yeah, and I always get
um,
that confused. It's because I think back to the houses I lived in, and I made one move like 2007, 2008, and then another one uh 2011, 2012, and I get those two time periods mixed up. But yeah, like anyway,
okay,
it's been 5 or 6 years at least since we
been
met,
a long time.
and we used to chat pretty regularly back in those days, working on our own products, projects towards freedom. And back then you were really pumping hard with libertyunderattack.com, and I was so happy when I came back in 2012 and or 2020, and looked it up, and you're still there, and you're still doing your podcast and talking about the VONU, and we could talk a little bit about that today. You're still going strong on the VONU podcast, right?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Obviously, it's whenever I have time to release stuff, and sometimes it might go like a month or two without a release, and then other times it'll be like 5 in a week. So, it's kind of sporadic, but it's pretty much when I'm inspired to put something out. And whether in the form, it's not just regular podcasts or interviews anymore. I release a lot of speaking in terms of Liberty and Tech publications. I release free audiobooks there, like second round book on strategy. That full audiobook is available on the Vonu podcast feed. Then like Just Below the Surface, A Guide to Security Culture by Kyle Reardon. That's also up for free. It's like a 3 or 4 hour audiobook. And then we've got other stuff too, like the Free Public Capacity, another project I'm working on building a parallel network. I'll release some comical culture jamming stuff. And I guess my standards, if I don't cringe, it's not good enough. So it's for fun. I like the culture jamming comedy angle for that. But so that stuff gets released on the Vonu feed too. And then just I guess recently I guess started doing the Pasadena Second Assemblies again. So those are 3 hour conversations, 2 3 hour conversations with really talented committed self liberators. So um yeah, VonuPodcast.com is pretty much like you can find anything I do is always published there. So like if that's pretty good place to start with.
Yeah, and just in case someone's listening who doesn't know the story, maybe you could give them a little bit of background about VONU and Rayo and how
Mhm.
that inspired you.
Yeah. So yep. So you mentioned Liberty Under Attack. It didn't start as a publishing outfit. It started as a podcast before I transitioned over to Vonu. But yeah, for we did something called the Direct Action Series back in beginning of 2016 is when we started, January 2016. And my co-host, or not my co-host at that time, but my co-host of the Vonu podcast, um, the founding of the podcast, he found this this book review on a website. Only like 3 lines. I think it was by Wally Conger, who anyone who's into agorism will be familiar with Wally Conger, but it might have been on his blog. It was only like like 3 paragraphs or something. But I found it on Amazon. There were only like 2 or 3 copies left. It's called Vonu: The Search for Personal Freedom. It's just like it's not a flashy looking, it's just an old green book is kind of what it looks like. And it costs like 30 or $35. And mind you, at that time I was in higher level indoctrination, what I call college. And I wasn't, really into studying Austrian economics at that time. You could get like 3 or 4 books for like $20. So I spent $30 on this old book that I really had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I got it and I read it, and I was blown away. So basically, the guy who wrote it went by the pseudonym of Rayo. And back in the mid to late '60s, he got sick of he started seeing the world a lot like we see it now. I would say back in the late '60s, and he took dramatic he made dramatic lifestyle changes to increase his personal freedom to make himself invulnerable to coercion, which is VONU. He started out as a van nomad, and soon after, I guess he calls them. I guess he calls them slave tags, like driver's licenses and registration. And he didn't feel free if he had to ask for permission to drive. So he started out in a van, and then took I guess the radical end of yeah, I guess wilderness fauna was where he ended up, basically living in a polyethylene A tent in the Siskiyou region, Northern California, Southern Oregon, or Northern Oregon, Northern California, Southern Oregon. And so he started writing for various libertarian zines back in the mid '60s, and then by 1974, he had disappeared. He stopped writing publications, and no one knows what happened to him. And then I guess 11 years later, or no, I guess it was like 9 years later, a guy named Jim Stum, who had been an archivist of a lot of these libertarian zines and publications from the '60s, released a book called. He released that book as an anthology, essentially. And without that, I would never found it. And then just recently, I mean, it's crazy to go full circle on this, because I never thought I'd get. I didn't think Jim Stum was even alive back then, but he is, and we're in contact now, and he sent me his
Oh,
entire
wow.
archive collection, because he's getting old and he doesn't want it to be lost. And I've been trying to, when I have time, I digitize them and release them. So like he sent them all to me. I haven't been back to that archiving project in a while, but
That's
regardless,
fantastic.
and so then there's him, and then there's a guy named Erwin Strauss, who was one of the inspirations for the Free Republic of Pasnia. He wrote a book back in 1969 called How to Start Your Own Country, and one of the examples he gives is a model country, and it's like a model train set. It's got all the trappings of the real thing, but well, I do it more as like a culture jamming thing, or as just a face for like a cooperative or a parallel network or something like that. And it's a fun way to present it too. But anyway, pertaining to Irwin, I actually got in contact with him too. He's still doing. There's he did a zine back in the '60s, still going, called The Connection, Libertarian Connection. And I subscribed for a year or so. I didn't have much time to look at it, and it wasn't too. It was still interesting and cool, but not really conversations I was interested in at this time. But regardless, I was in contact with Ernest Strauss too. So a lot of there's a few of these folks that are still around, which is really really amazing. But I guess to bring this background to VONU, um, I I've got a lot of stuff archived on the VONU website, and libertarian type publications. A lot of that motivation to start with was, or a lot of the ideas I had were I could republish these, and if people want paperback formats of stuff and they want to support my work, they can get these really awesome books on self liberation, libertarian philosophy, all of these things. So, yeah, that's kind of the long and short on VONU, radical lifestyle styles and pursuance of freedom. And it's pretty much there's some examples given in the book. I've talked about a lot of examples, but the mantra of VONU is yours for the making. So wherever you find yourself in your life, whatever situation you find yourself in, if you're taking steps to make yourself more invulnerable to the coercion of the state, or what I call the servile society, then essentially you're a Venuan. I'd say it's a little bit. VONU is a really hardcore freedom strategy, so it's more than just like that basic. But you get what I'm getting. I'm sure you get where I'm coming from. That's so really, if you're taking steps to make yourself more invulnerable, we're all building our own, invulnerable lifestyles. So it's very personalizable.
Yeah, and that really attracts me to your work, and I always keep coming back, and that's why I love having these talks with you. And I want to actually, going forward, encourage people to look more at these books that you have on your website. And in this episode, we're going to spend a little time looking at the website and actually talking about some of the books you have presented on libertyunderattack.com. And what's striking me right now is hearing you kind of go through that synopsis a little bit of your history and discovery of VONU. Is I have these conversations regularly with other folks in the natural law community, in the freedom community. I guess you could call it that. There is somewhat of a freedom community out there. A lot of people I know that recognize that this is a serious issue in our world, that we don't really have freedom, and we need to fight for it, and that we need to make space for it. And that's hard because we're living in such a backwards world. I had a conversation with another content creator, Leslie Powers, where we did this episode I called The Fish Tank. And we were talking about the movie Finding Nemo, and like some of those fish, they grew up in captivity in the fish tank, and so Nemo shows up in the fish tank and he's like, there's an ocean out there. And to me, that represents freedom, right? None of us have actually
Hmm.
ever been free. We've always lived in this fish tank. And so, well, it's hard for people to envision it. And what you do in your work is offer people practical steps. And part of that is recognizing we're not just going to go from being enslaved to being an anarchist, and it kind of struck me that you mentioned Rayo and his work and libertarians, where I think he went, from my point of view, beyond just libertarian, in closer
Hmm.
to being a true anarchist, which most of us are pretty far from. And I have to admit, even though I like the philosophy of anarchy, I'm pretty far away from it myself. I'm not there. I don't try to call myself an anarchist. I try to call myself an abolitionist. I'm trying to end slavery. I'm trying to end evil, but I'm not there in the physical world. I have a lot more to do, but I'm constantly taking steps. And thanks to you, I know what some of those next steps are, and people like you that have helped pave that way. So I'm just curious to see
Hmm.
what you think about this. Like, I guess you could call it a juxtaposition of understanding the philosophy of the way we want things to be, but then the reality, what we're actually dealing with and what's practical in our lifetime. Does that make
Yeah,
any sense?
so it's a good, yeah, it does. It does. And I guess the first thing, and Rayo talked about this in the 60s. Again, in the 60s, a lot of people, there are a lot of new folks, you mentioned the freedom community, I'll use that terminology too. There's a lot of new folks, over the past, few years. And he viewed, or I guess the label that he uses, like to put this in context, like there's the servile society is what he calls it. So and then I guess the other way I look at it is first and second realm. The first being, the I guess the realm of slavery, and the second realm being the realm of freedom. So I think the first off is just acknowledging that and recognizing it. And it's not easy. I mean, it's to come to a lot of these conclusions is not easy. I don't enjoy a lot of it. I enjoy the pursuit of truth, but it's not always easy to come across some of the things I come across, and can verify, right? So, um, yeah, I guess that'd be the first thing. And yeah, back when I guess started down this path, like I was still, very much ingrained in the system. But thankfully I didn't have a whole lot of ties, but I really didn't have any alternatives out of it at that point. Just a broke college student essentially. And then you're putting out podcasts and radio shows and things like that. But so you could still kind of partially exist in, the servile society in that system. And you'd still were not free by any standards, but you were it was a lot less overt than what it was, come 2020. Where I don't think it's really much of a choice anymore. It's like if you have these ideas and you can't put up with that society, then you have to like take steps to divest from it, and in some sense, at least, or at least in a lot of senses, I would say. And the first one of those being financial independence. That's really the one of the major controllers of the first realm at this point, of the servile society is because that's a lot of people got put in really bad situations, a few years ago because they had a reliance upon that single source of income. And if you did, and so yeah, if people didn't want that option, I've heard of some legal avenues to go about that, but then again, the people who pursued those legal avenues trying to keep their jobs, they had to quit because the environment, the health industry was so bad, that they couldn't work there anymore. They couldn't, couldn't by their conscience, work there anymore. So I guess what I'm getting at is it's less of a choice now for those of us with these ideas, and so it's basically just like solutions. That's where we're at. We need to be able to exist. We need our own society that is foundation upon peace and voluntarism and truth rather than coercion and deception, and this really atrocious coercion, um, in of the servile society. So um, yeah, I mean, it started kind of with me, like, I guess, like a lot of people who, are new to, freedom. They realize how enslaved they are and they have no way to get out. And thankfully, I've dug a lot of this stuff up over the years and trying to make it as easy for people to find as possible. And I think it's helping. I think it's helping for people to actually see paths out of the first realm. And with Pasnia, with the Free Republic of Pasnia and the Second Realm Network, um, we're trying to provide those opportunities. We're working on a Second Realm directory and map right now, and when we have that map available and people can see all of all of the homes, the off-grid homesteads, all of the um anyway, once they can see everything on there, like van nomads, we've got a lot of van nomads in the network already. They can start charting, we can start having our own trade network, and they can, probably feasibly, come up with our own logistics network, and people could, start working, start driving for the second realm, I guess is the way to put it. So we're trying to create those opportunities people can actually get out, because it's not easy. I mean, it's to build up a side hustle. As I know you've done it with me, over the past years. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to be found, and I guess in the case of VONU, it's good that it's hard to be found. But I guess
Well, it's what's really
yeah,
make it is to do it in a moral way. Like you and I have both studied some marketing and advertising because, running into that frustration of how do you reach people, and you can do it in a manipulative way, but that's not really what we're after because we don't want to control people and manipulate them. We want to encourage them and sell them, so trying to do it in a morally way, a morally just way, is difficult in a society that is used to doing things immorally. Sorry to interrupt you there, go ahead.
yeah. Oh no, you're good. That's definitely true. That's definitely true. Um, yeah, yeah. And really, like, again, a lot of this wasn't planned, and it's not going to look the same for everybody, and it's probably not going to look anything like my vision for a lot of people, or well, like my path for a lot of people. Um, yeah, but I guess what's been interesting about getting to this point is that, and again, it's kind of unplanned, but I had the podcast that turned into the, Liberty LUA radio turned into the publishing, and then VONU kept going as the podcast, and then there's Pasnia, and all of these are ways for people to, or I guess at least Pasnia and that are ways for people to support my efforts too, and what we're trying to build all together, this parallel network. But so yeah, it kind of all feeds into each other, and I don't really have to advertise or market, and if I do, it's always comical. So I just released, or it's always culture shaming based. So I just released, it's called, it was a PASNI, Department of Health and Wellness announcement. And it was, regarding a hair mineral analysis test, which people can go listen to the advertisement, but styled, and it's people have to go listen to it, but it's very much styled like a normal, marketing commercial, but it's comedy. So it's a way, it's getting across, marketing. People enjoy listening to the advertisements. I got compliments on my advertisements.
Good, good.
Like they enjoy listening to them. So like I think that's that, you don't have to, there are good ways to approach things, and as you said, moral ways, and I guess some people could say that comedy is manipulative, but I guess it's just a different approach. I wouldn't call it manipulative myself. I would just, yeah, I would definitely wouldn't. But yeah, I'm
Yeah,
with you.
no, me either. And it's like when we look at the strong arming tactics that are used by most corporations or the government or schools, it's like it's usually pretty evil, forcing people to make choices that they don't want to make,
Right.
or tricking them into it by engaging their fear, and that's what I'm thinking more manipulative. It's like, most
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
advertising really centers around scaring somebody into getting something because they feel like they don't have another choice. Whereas what you're doing
Right.
or what we're doing is offering a multitude of
Yep.
choices and possibilities. And it seems like this networking has become, for me, very important, because, like, how are we going to trade and barter in a principled way unless there's people to trade and barter with, and but I think
Hmm.
that is one of the most practical things that I've found in life to get around the matrix of the financial BS is, like, I can make a deal with somebody I know, in, like, I have a little community of people that I've built up over time, and I can trade someone, hey, I'll do this for you, and then you give me eggs, or you teach me yoga, or and I fix your door or whatever. And sometimes we do trade actual funds, but it's a lot better between people than it's not getting filtered through government agencies and such. And so that's one
Hmm.
really practical thing we can do to work towards freedom for all, is to support one another. So that's why I'm really excited about, your ongoing work with both VONU and Liberty Under Attack publications. And so I'd like to spend a little time kind of looking through some of the inventory of things that you have offered. And I just, before we start that, I just wanted to encourage people that, like what you just said, how important this is. People always think just because someone's selling something that, oh, they're just doing it for the money, but it's like, this is totally different when someone like Shane is selling something to start the second realm, to jumpstart the world that we all want to live in. This is encouraging the lifestyle we want to live. We buy things from one another that give us value, and it helps both of us, all of us. It's a win-win, you know. So
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe you can expand on that a little bit, and I'll start getting the share
Yeah.
screen going.
Mhm. Certainly, and I guess I'll also, mention again that I guess the books we have in audiobook format that we can release, we those are available on the VONU podcast feed for free. And then most of all of the old, libertarian and VONU zines, those are all available for free too, online. Now I guess there are maybe a handful which we also work with clients in publishing. So we do have some clients who we can't. That's not something a decision that we can make. So few of them aren't available, but but the vast majority of them are available for free and PDF formats. So yeah, it's all about getting the information out there. And the way that I'm putting, I guess the way that um, yeah, I guess again, the way that I look at it is if people want to help support my efforts, and then they can, they can buy books. I found that, just asking for donations doesn't really work. And you got to offer people something. And so I figure, these high quality books, and yeah, some people don't like to read on screens either. So, because people, again, I'm all about giving people choices and options. So,
So I got vonupodcast.com open. Can you see that, Shane, on your
mhm.
end?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Yeah, I like your line here. The podcast making you invulnerable to the coercion of the state and the servile society. And here, right at the top, if you look right now, is that what you were just describing, your health and wellness. I'll have to check that out after the show. That sounds great. And then you
Mhm.
said, here's free Vonu books right here at the top.
Mhm.
So you can find the book that inspired this podcast. There it is right there. Rayo's book, The Search for Personal Freedom. Uh, there's a free download PDF, the free audiobook right there, easy to find. Um, and you can download it. And then is all this other free Vonu
Uh,
publications. You got a whole bunch
mhm.
of stuff here. I'll let you talk, Shane.
Yeah, yeah, and so I mean, that's not. I think that's most of them. So I switched hosts a few years back, and I think I have all the links updated to those. But yeah, that was the initial back when I had a year or two of I had a lot of time just to type and digitize when I was in college. So those were like the initial first like 6 or 7 that I got from Jim, and I found Vonnie Life March 1973. Found it on a random website, and like an actual physical publication from 1983. It was brilliant, really amazing one. Um, but yeah, those are all available for free right there, and yeah, even more. So just a good start.
That's fantastic. What happens when you click on one of these? Boom. Uh, there it
Well,
is.
maybe
Yeah.
that link doesn't work.
Yeah. No, that's great. Okay,
Maybe.
so then let's go look at LUA publications, because I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you some questions about some of the books. Here you have the book that you put together, which is a strategy for self-liberation based on Vonu, and then you got the forward by Ben Stone from the Bad Quaker, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I actually just released the second edition of that on September 11th.
Oh wow,
So that's actually the second edition. I didn't really indicate that on the front, but
I see.
indicate that on the cover, but it's the only one available now. With the new forward by Ben Stone, and then I wrote an introduction, highlighting some of the stuff that I covered as part of my path here. From philosophy to figuring out action, and then I added what 3 or 4 chapters, updating on some stuff that I didn't touch on or that needed to be updated. So it's yeah, second edition's available of Finding the Strategy for Self
That's
Liberation.
pretty awesome. And you got it. Looks like
Yeah.
you got it on Amazon too. But I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, we'd rather have people go through your website, libertyunderattack.com. It's
Yep.
always better to buy from someone's website than stupid Amazon, whenever possible.
Certainly.
And then, okay, let's look through some of these. You got all these books. Okay, this is libertyunderattack.com, the main page, and look at all these choices. Talk a little bit about your project with these privacy laptops.
So yeah, obviously it's libertarian type publications. Our specialty is, well, I guess not even really our specialty. It's where we started though, is books, books and book bundles. But over the past few years, one of my colleagues, associates, Jamin Bakonik, who he's been doing these ghost pads for like 20 years. Things are finally getting to a point, like the open source technology is free and open source space, where this stuff is really user friendly. Whereas it really wasn't. I've been into this stuff since 2015 and trying to work on some of it, and it really wasn't feasible for me, and therefore I'd say not for a lot of people. But now it's coming around. It's definitely coming around. So we have ghost phones, which are de-Googled. I guess they're Google Pixel 3As, Google Pixel 3As. So they're de-Googled and they have Calyx OS on them. I guess there are a number of different open source operating systems for phones now. The other popular one is Graphene, which is also great. But what Jamin goes for, and he can obviously flash Graphene on a phone for you if you want to. But the ones that we're offering are supposed to be like, if you switch over from an Android, like it's going to be the exact experience, except it's going to be a lot better because it's a free and open source software. So it's supposed to be easy to use. Where a 2-op VPN is always on by default. You can run everything through Tor if you wanted to. But yeah, the ghost phones are slick. I've been using one since March, and I'll never go back. Well, I have two of them, but I'll never go back to a spy phone or anything like that. It's definitely a step up. And as far as the laptops, they aren't necessarily new in the sense. So with laptops, it's with most technology nowadays, with the hardware in them, the chips that are in them, they're not privacy friendly, and they're oftentimes closed source, so you don't know what the hell they're doing. And then there's the problem of the Intel management engine, which is in basically every single laptop that you come across today. And if you take that management engine out, it's the thing that spies on you, that can turn on your camera without you knowing, and can basically take root access of your entire computer. No control because of this thing. Most laptops, you can't even use them; they brick. I guess Jamin calls them, they brick out. You can't use them if you remove that chip. So I guess there's a select number of laptops that he can work with, and he's got some new varieties coming out. But there's a lot. So a number of them are like the old Lenovo ThinkPads, which have the management engine removed and replaced with the privacy, respecting open source one. And then he can toss on whatever Linux distro you prefer. I know he's got. I just got one of his most recent editions. I think Ghost tablets. So it's it's a sweet looking machine. I don't think it's up on the site yet, but it's a really really slick little machine, a miniature version of a ThinkPad essentially. And then
So
I just got
on
back
any
in.
of
Yep, go ahead.
these, you're not going to be working on like a Microsoft or an OS operating system. It's got to be
No.
Linux, right?
Yeah, so I would argue that would defeat the purpose.
Yeah, right.
Partially defeat the purpose if you were to install one of those on there. And that's definitely definitely a valid question. Something that I feared. I only switched over just like in June this year, actually, to be honest. I just got the most expensive laptop we have on there. Is I think it's this one, but it's a Dell. It's not one of the Lenovo ThinkPads, but it's a massive. It's more like a desktop to me. But it's a content creation ghost pad, so it's got Ubuntu on it, which has the Ubuntu
Is
Studio,
that
so it
the
comes with like
520?
everything. I think it.
That's the one all the way to the left. That's
Never mind.
939.
Yeah. So maybe this one. I'm not sure if it's that one. I don't
You
see
can
it.
wait. Go ahead. Yeah, that's okay. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, Jamin has other, and so I might have. So I don't have everything listed on my site that Jamin has. That Jamin does offer too. So that's pretty much anything you want, he can do. He's an expert on this stuff.
Right on.
But yeah, I guess
So if
just to
someone
close
wanted,
that one
they
thought
could
for a
contact you,
content
right?
creator. Yeah, yep. And I think Jamin's email, and I'll just put it out there. Jamin at semisynthetic.net is his email address. And if yeah, I can put you in contact with him other ways too. If people that are listening to your podcast. So yeah.
Sorry, I keep interrupting. You were trying to finish the thought.
Oh no, you're good. No, you're good. So I just switched over in June to the content creation ghost pad. And yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I was working on like a 2013 old Windows machine, which, God bless it for still working, being a backup. But I can't use it for like 5 minutes when I turn it on. After that, it's manageable. now that I've got it down. But this thing is like this Dell is probably like 10 years old. I don't know for sure, what the year is, but it's basically silent and it's super fast and yeah, it's yeah, with Ubuntu, fantastic. Highly recommend. Even if and you don't have to even and I don't recommend I, so obviously if you want to buy from us, we'll make Jamin can do it for you and make it easy, but you can also all this stuff is free and open source. So you can get your own you can buy your own Lenovo ThinkPad from eBay, I think, and you can, flash whatever thing you want on there. Do it all yourself, or you can have Jamin do it, which I outsource my tech stuff to Jamin now, and I'm more than happy to admit that.
That's fantastic, Shane. And it's like that's real. Like none of us have all this figured out, but what you're offering is options, and you're sharing with people. Hey, here's a way to do it. Here's another way to do it. You want to save some money? Do it this way. I mean, that's just honest, and it's caring about freedom and not just caring about making money. Like obviously you got to find a way to pay the bills. So I recommend people, if you're gonna, you know, get one of the things or buy one of these things, why not try to go through someone that cares about freedom? But if not, Shane's here to give some advice and help, and you can listen to his shows, and there's lots of information out there and people that are willing to help if you're someone who wants to work towards or fight for freedom. So let's
Mhm.
look at the books and the packages a little bit, what we have available.
Sure.
Oh, here's the ghost phone you were talking about. And
Mhm.
then the VONU beginner's guide. that that's something
Yeah,
you
yeah.
you put together again, right? Was that the first edition or is that different?
No, so that's just I wrote it was an article, I think. I'm the editor at Agorist Nexus. And so I contribute articles over there occasionally, and I put together a Vonnie beginner's guide in article format and release it as a podcast, and then it's really good for if people like I take them to freedom festivals and give them out for free. So that's what bulk pamphlets. If people go to freedom festivals, they can have those to take with them if they want to help spread word about the second realm.
Wonderful. And then you got like a package, the self liberation bundle, and that just
Hmm.
includes all kinds of stuff. Oh, I was trying to make it zoom in and it went the other way. It's weird how that happens sometimes. But so you've packaged up, and that's like digital books in the package, correct?
Oh, no, so those are, if the digital ones are marked digital, so the digital celebration bundle is down there, one to the right. But so that celebration bundle is 18. I have to update it still. We published a few more books, but this is the current. Until I do, this is the current celebration bundle. 18 books. The first 18 books that we published. All the stuff on Bonu. And then one thing we haven't talked about, which is another huge focus of Elliott Publications, is so books have been really inspirational to me are like hashtag Agora, which is agorist fiction. So these are fictional books based on, well, I guess hashtag Agora is based off real people, real second realm folks out over in Germany, I guess in Europe more generally. But so we offer hashtag Agora, which was really inspirational for me to start to give me ideas of how this free society could be built, how free people can interact with the servile society, all of those things. So we have hashtag Agora as part of that bundle. Brushfire is in there, the first one, which we just released I guess it was a number of months ago. Released the second in that series, Brushfire in 2048. Two different books, but yeah, Brushfire is in that initial celebration bundle by one of our publishers or one of our publishing clients, Matthew Wateki. It's a really, really fantastic book, very getting very, very good reviews. And you got on the screen right there the Brushfire bundle, which has both Brushfire and 2048. That's the newest one. And I guess there are more coming. I guess it's supposed to be a trilogy, so more to look forward to.
I'm having trouble finding Agora, hashtag Agora. Is it not listed by itself?
It's down at the very bottom, I think. Yeah, it was like it was the first book I ever published, so it's probably down there at the very bottom right.
Oh, there it is.
If I had to guess.
The Journey of Daniel
Yep, there you
LaRousseau, Crypto Anarchism.
go. Hmm.
Great. Yeah, so there's that. And then you even have some other
Oh
products on there
gosh, yeah.
too. That's
There's
cool.
more. There's more. Yeah. So Aura's Apothecary is also on there. So my free wife Aura, she makes some really incredible salves and natural insect repellents. Comfrey style, which we grow the comfrey here at here at Veritas Pasnia. So those are all available too if you want to assist you or your family in your pursuit of health liberation, self liberation. Then we've got help with that too.
Yeah, natural insect repellent, thieves salve, comfrey. And comfrey is a powerful herb that really
Hmm.
helps healing, even like inside. I had a friend who really hurt his knee, and it was like inside of his knee. It wasn't like the skin, it was like inside, and he kept putting comfrey, and it made a big difference in the healing process. And so,
Certainly.
okay, Tom Marshall. I haven't really looked at that one, The Life of Tom Marshall.
So yeah, Tom Marshall is the well, it may be his given name, it may not be, I don't know, but that's the name before he switched to Rayo, he was Tom Marshall is the name that he went by. So the life of Tom
Oh, I
Marshall
see.
is, I guess, the
Prequel.
this is the best, I guess, if you want to get like a quick rundown of, Rayo's life from his, early 60s to, throughout his publishing and zines and his what can be tracked from his lifestyle activities. It's the best compilation to give you a kind of I guess, a linear chronology of his life. And hopefully, I plan on it's going to be it's one of my bigger projects, but I'm calling it Writings from a Self Liberator. And I'm going to, since I have everything that he wrote now, when I get back around to digitizing, I'll basically put everything he ever wrote from like 1963 to 1974 in chronological order. And then I'm going to write like a really long, like, once that's all there, it's probably going to be illuminating for me too, for many ways. But I'm not sure what
Yeah.
I don't know how I imagine there's going to be a lot of thoughts. Um, so I don't know, an introduction or conclusion or something like that. But that's going to be a big one, and it might, 5-10 years even before that comes out, because building in the physical second realm is more important right now. And
Yeah, and we'll
yeah,
have to
not
talk
that Bonnie content's not getting out.
about Pasnio a little bit before we finish up. Um, how about Brushfire? I
Yeah, so Brushfire is that's really really amazing, freedom oriented thriller. Yeah, which we just released. So that's the full audiobook, which I think is like 15 plus hours. And yeah, 15 hours and 17 minutes. And then yeah, we just released like an hour teaser of that on the VONU podcast feed. So if you want to check out the first hour, then you can do so. But
Oh, cool.
yeah, it's works in some Vonu security culture. Using ghost pads and ghost tablets, think ghost pads, all that stuff. Again, it's kind of like Hashtag Agora, where if you want to see, I guess, a possibility of how these tools can all interact with a free lifestyle, then you can actually get some inspiration. And gosh,
Some
there's a lot of
insight
inspiration.
and some
Yep.
imagination in I've talked about that before. That's one of the things that people are lacking, the ability to imagine a better world. Everybody gets so cased in by this fish tank that we're in now that it's hard for them to see the ocean or see, what they call see the forest through the trees, because we're so
Mhm.
indoctrinated and used to this world of slavery that trying to imagine freedom seems really. Oh, cool. Here's the evolution trilogy. I did a interview with Todd. Geez, it's been a couple
Mhm.
years, and I have his that book. That's fun. His fictional story. Gosh, there's just so
Yep.
much here. Oh, your Pasnia full size flag. That's pretty awesome.
Yep.
Anything else jumping out here that you wanted to talk about? Guide to firearms. That's
Um,
important.
I suppose I just mentioned the most recent thing I added to the site was our digital section. So if people just want to, instead of buying, the Kindle version on Amazon, which I don't think we even have, all of them on Amazon. But yeah, if you want to get, just downloads to the books, then those are available too. And it asks, I can't turn it off. So like, there's no shipping information necessary for digital books, so don't enter anything. Um, yeah, no reason to. But yeah.
Excellent. So, I mean, there's a wealth of information here that can be accessed. I mean, you can start off for free, and then get buy something, support Shane's work, and support your own work and project of being inspired to take steps towards freedom. This is a great way to do it. How about like for instance, Todd? I talked to Todd, and he was just a regular guy like me, and he got his book published under your
Mm.
um, under your website. That's pretty awesome. So it looks like you
Uh,
have a
so yeah,
process for others to do that.
we didn't necessarily. So he was one. There are some people who reached out, came across us, and reached out, independent authors, and so we've got his book listed on the LU Publications site. We didn't necessarily publish it, but it is. I'm glad you brought that up. Because I need to have him on. I need to have him on VONU to talk about it. I've read the first two, and need to finish the third, and I need to have him on anyway. But because yeah, they're definitely great stories. And but yeah, for authors, we aren't necessarily taking on I mean, we're not like looking for new clients per se. But people are, if authors are authors, looking for assistance publishing, they go to libertariantech.com /publish. And from, reading, interview, proofreading, to, Kindle and paperback formatting, basically, all from the full publication process, we can help with it all. And yeah, so like I said, we're not necessarily looking for clients, but if I always encourage people to reach out. Because if I resonate, resonate and I feel, really, really good about it, I'll take stuff on. Um, but I kind of I need to with LA publications. There are a couple, I guess, internal projects. I guess second editions to books that need to come out, and so I guess that's kind of what the focus is, at least for the coming months. And then the other factor too is that spring on a homestead is kind of chaotic, and try to limit other projects when that's coming around.
Yeah,
So
people go looking on websites and they start thinking they're so used to the commercial world out there that, oh, everything's figured out and everything's done. But you got to realize, you look at a website like Shane's here, he's done all this by himself, figured out all the technology. Um, and that is no easy task. I'll tell you what, trying to maintain a website is never ending work. You're constantly having to update things and deal with new problems and computer glitches and, um, you know, paying fees to keep all these things going. There's a lot to
mhm.
it. And so what you started doing is, one thing I love about Shane, your work, is that you're always like a very practical person. You're actually working on these things in the real world. You're not just talking about them like a lot of people do. So what you're describing is that right now you got a lot going on because of what you got going on the homestead. So let's segue a little bit. I'm going to stop this screen share into talking a little bit about, practical solutions and things we're actually doing in our real life. I talked about, in my world, one thing I do is I work for people. I know how to do handyman work, construction work, and I will trade my labor sometimes for my self-defense class, or for my yoga class, or for cash, because I can handle that in the way I please. So that's one thing that I'm able to do in the real world, and I've been able to do it more and more. The more I've been able to find ways to supplement my income, and doing a little bit of online freelancing work allows me to not have a full-time job for the time being, and then I don't have to do things the way the government wants me to do them. I can kind of skirt around some of their BS. So, talk about some of the things you're doing in the real world out there. And Pasnia, I love hearing about it.
Oh, sure, sure. So, I guess I could provide, the couple-minute overview, of the Free Republic of Pasnia. So back in 2020, chaos ensued in the Servile Society, as we're all well aware of by this point, pretty much anywhere in the world. So yeah, it's I don't have to explain that. So yeah, I guess the first thing I did was I got goats and lambs. I got a couple. I guess I got a couple goats and a few lambs, and started down that avenue. And then one of my buddies, Jason Hensta, came out to visit in mid 2020. And for some, I was feeling like I never thought that I would get people to come out to Southern Illinois is where I'm at, like an hour, I guess 90 miles east of St. Louis. But I never thought I'd get people to come out here in the first place. So it was kind of a shot in the dark. But I was like, I'm going to start an event here called VONU Fest and see if I can get anyone to come out here. Well, a couple months into that, it turned into not just VONU Fest, but I was declaring my independence and starting my own country, the Free Republic of Pasnia. So Pasnia is PAZNIA, and the PAZ is an acronym for Permanent Autonomous Zones, basically pockets of freedom where we can actually be free, which we've been talking about this entire conversation so far. And it's also peace in Spanish. So the Free Republic of Pasnia, I call it, the life essence of Pasnia is peace. But beyond that, I mean, it's really it's more, we offer what we call stakeholders, STEAK holders, And so people can, I guess join the cooperative if you want to think about it that way. And benefits. We have PASNIA passports. Special PASNIA IDs. There's a lot of cool features people can check out. A lot of cool little perks. And then obviously access to the second realm network, the parallel network that we're building. So, um, and I guess what that entails for me here on the homestead is basically I've got 22 acres, and we've got chickens, ducks, and turkeys. And then, see the herd's expanded. The herd expanded a lot, and we had to, take care of that a couple months ago. Fill up the freezer is always a good thing, always a really really positive thing. And so that's kind of what we're working on now. We just went through our first batch of bunnies, first batch of rabbits, which is crazy how I couldn't really tell the difference between like turkey and rabbits. To be frank, how really it's crazy how similar they are. I never thought that. Um, but anyway, we're just building out our self sufficiency here. From food, we got gardens here as well. Or does terrific work with the gardens here, and then yeah, I guess just in every area, making slow progress, and investigating for our homestead here, and then also another perk to joining the Second Realm Network is we're investigating a lot of in addition to food, things like health. We got a Pasadena Department of Health and Wellness. We've got an aqua cure here. We've got a Rife machine, which is behind me. We're all constantly coming up, trying to acquire a lot of these tools that, whether they're expensive, like the AquaCure is a couple $1,000s, and Rife machine. I mean, I guess they're out there, but they're not super easy to find, at least the old style legitimate Rife machines. Um, so there's that. There's the Pasadena Department of Transportation, which we were talking about the logistics network once we get the map and directory going. And then there's the Department of Energy, which we just had a couple days ago. We had one of a fellow Pasnian come out, and he donated a magnetic motor, which can apparently power a fridge. He just didn't have time to deal with it, and so we just got that in. And there's a lot. There's really a lot. And I guess one thing that we're really focusing, or I guess a couple things we're really focusing on this year, and I can go more into one than I can the other, is so the AquaCure we have here. It's a Brown's gas generator. George also offered for a while, and now you can just put them on yourself. They're called fuel saver kits, and they're basically the Brown's gas hydrogen add-on. It doubles it greatly increases your fuel efficiency up to double in some cases. And I have the tutorial video. He had his like 14-year-old nephew or granddaughter put it together, so she did the entire thing except for the soldering step. So it was like, here
If
she's
she can
doing
do
it, so
it,
you
you
guys
can
should
do
be
it.
able to. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So it can be used on like the car, on cars, the Rhino, the side by side here. It can be used on propane. Part of our independence right now, or I guess more close to independence, is that we use propane for a lot of stuff. So instead of being 100% dependent, they only need to come out once a year. And if we can get the fuel saver kit on that, double the efficiency of propane tank, add a second, we might be able to not have them come out for a few years, and that just be an interim solution to a lot of the other things that we're looking into. But yeah, there's quite a bit for sure.
Yeah, and that, some people, because I'm doing these interviews all the time, I'm talking to other people who are talking about philosophy and principles, and some people I feel like um in discussion will take it to the extreme of what we should and shouldn't do, and even like the extreme vegans, like you shouldn't even be eating meat. I'm a vegetarian for the most part, but
Mhm.
on the other hand, the realistic world we're living in, like I was said, the fish tank we're in, we have to find every possible thing we can do to move forward, and what you're doing is creating self-sufficiency. And this is a concept that I think some people really struggle with, that if we do really want to be free from government, that means we have to be able to take responsibility for, like you're saying, our energy, our medicine, our food, our well-being. We can't expect anybody else to give us these things. And so to survive, we got to eat what we have available. We got to learn how to grow our food, or we got to learn how to have animals on our property that can help maintain the property. Or, and if we're going to eat the animals, then we have to take care of the animals, and they're going to get treated a hell of a lot better than animals on a factory farm. That's for dang sure. And I love
Yeah.
all the practical steps you're taking. I'm curious a little bit about how difficult it's been making some of those transitions. I know when we first started talking, you were still like in college, probably living under your parents' roof at that time, right? And you've had to make some big changes between now and then.
So I had a house with my brother, and he usually had a friend or two that would cycle in as roommates. So I guess it's definitely been an adjustment, I guess. And trying to balance, I call it a liberated lifestyle. And I, 'cause I think one of the ways a survival society can exist the way that it does is to keep everyone so damn busy all the time that they can't even have an independent thought themselves. So they keep everyone so busy, so stressed out, so worried, so in fear that there's no way that they can focus on, that they don't have the bandwidth to, you work all day, you come home and, you cook dinner and it's like, what do you want to, you want to sit on the, you want to sit on the couch. You don't want to at least so for some people's cases, I know it was for me a lot of times. I didn't want to do a lot after, I was exhausted.
Mhm.
And, so I guess I call it a liberated lifestyle to where my time is my own. But there's also there's a lot that a lot that needs to get done, a lot that I want to get done, and I guess it's trying to balance that um, to where um, the second realm gets built, but also that we're not slaving away and just I guess becoming our own tyrants. So I guess that's been like one of the hardest adjustments is for a while, up until 4 years ago, I was I put it this, but I was chronically poisoning myself. And I was chronically poisoned as a child, with Babylon Pharmaceuticals. Um, so I didn't have I guess the best word I can come up with is bandwidth. I didn't have the bandwidth to entertain a lot of these ideas to, actually see how first off to actually recognize a fishbowl, how big is the fishbowl, and actually starting to come to these realizations.
Yeah,
But
like the extent of the problem, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I guess just yeah, it's been wrestling with a lot of a lot of new and difficult ideas like breakthrough energy. I would have thought that was nonsense, years ago. Looking into things like I've interviewed a guy named Phoenix Aurelius who's a medical spagyricist. So he uses he's does it with great success. He uses
Yeah, a
true
true
sidereal
alchemist.
astrology to
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, he and not he and he's a blacksmith too. He had swords that he, smelted and it's like he does everything. I mean, that's it's he's a I guess a renaissance man. But
Right.
um yeah, so a lot of this stuff I would have never entertained before, but we have on the Pasnia Agora page, where we have I guess Pasnia preferred businesses and hustles to to support. A medical astrologer reached out to me and gave me a free he typed up a very lengthy and in depth reading, and it's like holy shit, like spot on. He was just a random guy who sent me an email. He didn't know me from Adam really, right? So
Wow.
um and then obviously Phoenix, I've interviewed Phoenix. I've listened to a lot of Phoenix's stuff, and he's he it's hard to doubt now. It's really hard to doubt. Um, yeah.
Yeah, like he really walks the walk, and it's very intense to listen to him talk because he might be talking about a physical thing, but he's also talking about a spiritual truth, and someone who really has took the alchemy thing and hermetics to another level. And I think that's like what you're doing in a lot of ways too. It's a type of alchemy. It's one thing to talk about philosophy, and it's another thing to have the wisdom to take the actions. And part of that is like you're describing too, our own personal health and learning to overcome our own obstacles. I know you've overcome some physical obstacles I have. Like for me, learning to do the Wim Hof breathing got me past this huge allergy problem, which is like you're saying, when you're working day to day, when I was working in construction and out working 8 hours, driving an hour of that time, coming home kind of beat up, not being able to breathe right, what am I going to do in the evening with my time except just recuperate and prepare for the next day, but little
Right.
by little we start chipping it away. And I know some people out there, you got kids, you got all these responsibilities, you're like, it's overwhelming, I can't do it at all. Tell you what, you can chip away at it, and through the books that Shane's showing us and the podcasts that he's making and that I'm making, that other similar people are making, you can chip away at these problems. Like, I was joking, like we met 20 years ago or whatever. I guess it's actually 6 or 7, but it's taken you 6 or 7 or 8 years working on this website, and through that time you've made a lot of connections, and now you have people like someone dropped by and brought you this magnetic motor, someone else gives you the connection for the best way to do these laptops. But that's you putting action into the world and putting your podcasts out there and doing the work of reading these books and sharing them with people. And then you've given so much that now people bring back to you, and now you have these networks. So that's encouragement to people listening. You got to get going on this stuff. It takes time. You're not going to start Pasnia today and have it fully running tomorrow. It takes a lot of hard work and a process, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and yeah, I mean, it's just what I've always said, and even when I didn't have any idea of a vision, or like I really didn't see any way out of the first realm or the Cerebral Society for me either. Like I didn't see one, like the image wasn't in my head. But what I always said and what I always stuck to is like if you just do like one thing a day, it doesn't matter what it is, just like make sure to consistently, no matter how big or how small the step is, eventually you'll look back, after 5 years and be like, wow, all that stuff seemed like minuscule nonsense, but actually, when it all piles up, it's like you see real success. And I guess the other way that I put this is cutting ties to the Cerebral Society. So it's like if you've got credit cards and mortgage, and that's one main job for your for your finance, for your well being and all. Um, then very slowly, maybe one credit card at a time, one bank account at a time, and just slowly get down to and as you learn more, as you become more competent, then yeah, you might be able to make bigger steps. But really, the important thing is just to get started and be consistent about it. And um, yeah, and yeah, obviously, always keep in mind that VONU is years for the making, but obviously, there's a lot of resources out there to get you started. I am obviously always available in the Telegram Pasnia chat, t.me/Pasnia chat. People want to join our committee of correspondence. We got like 150 some people in there now. It's crazy. Like that alone is just crazy. That's getting close to 200, real people. And it's not just like most of those folks are like very vetted to where I've known it for like 5+ years. And the other ones like are very networked to where like where they're essentially vetted. So like it's a really
Kind of
it's
tight knit
quite large, tight knit
community.
community. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
fantastic. And that takes time to build up. And look, there's a way to meet some really awesome people just right there. And that kind of segue to the kind of last subject I wanted to run by you
Hmm.
before we close up, which is, for me, what opened a lot of these doors to the people I have in my community now, because I have both, multiple online community groups that I communicate with, and then I have local people that are with me on varying scales, but all agreement of the importance of freedom. And that's taken some time to cultivate. But one of the things that really got me there was having that bravery to speak out online and to share my work and to invite people to communicate with me by having a podcast, by having a website, and by putting my email address out there and saying, hey, contact me if you're interested in natural law, if you care about freedom. And people did. And so creating content and getting your content out there, I'd like you to talk a little bit about that process and encourage people to get started as a way to network and to start doing these things.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you brought it up, as I realized that another guy we used to be in masterminds with, Philip Frey,
Yeah,
interviewed me
Philip.
on this like it's like self like a way, using podcasting as like a way of self discovery. And yeah, you're talking about the connections. Like I've interviewed people I never thought I'd be able to interview. And then there's folks like that would have had never had a reason to talk if I didn't wasn't able to invite them on to talk about their work. Um, and then Yeah, just and I guess I'll say that a lot. So there's some stuff on the VONU podcast where I purely like have them on because I have questions for them, and I can just tie it into the podcast. I can usually always tie anything into self liberation, and it works really really well. And especially with Pasni now, because it's basically every avenue of the human existence and every human institution. So pretty much everything is relevant. But yeah, I mean, it's a great way to, like, if I have specific questions for somebody, I can have them on to talk about their work and have a great conversation, and I can ask them a question or two. And yeah, it's it's crazy. Yeah, it is crazy to think about. All from starting that podcast back, February of 2015, February 8th, 2015, was when I launched Liberty Tech Radio. And I would have never imagined, all the connections I made. It was, 6 months when I started the podcast or the radio show. I found out about the Midwest Peace and Liberty Fest, and that's where a lot of these people I know come from. Michigan, Chicago area, and then people I just met at that festival. A lot of it originated from there, which originated for podcasting, and then this entire network. So, yeah, the importance of networking and connections is especially now, especially with people that are of like minds, and that are anti coercion, who aren't going to coerce you or turn you into coercers. Yeah, it's of the utmost importance, and getting out there. I mean, you put it this way, you put it out there, and it comes back. I mean, it is kind of that way. This in this realm that we find ourselves in. So, um, yeah, it's you find the tribe that you resonate with, I guess, is a way to put it. So, yeah.
Right. But it takes that initiative and willpower to reach out and to work through that nervousness of, they're all watching me, everybody's going to notice, no one's going to like what I do. One thing I try to share with people, one of the realities I realized, I had this whole, back before I met you, when I started the Scrit Show, my first podcast, like this fear of sharing my stuff. And then I realized when you start sharing your stuff, you'd be lucky if you get anyone to watch it or listen to it. The problem isn't all these people saying, "Oh, this sucks," or "This isn't good." The problem is getting anyone to even look at it, after you put all this time and trouble into it. So, don't be afraid. Don't be like hesitant to get started on publishing your work. It's like, it's not like the whole world's going to see it as soon as you put it on the internet. Your problem's going to be the opposite, getting people to check it out. And that comes with time and consistency, and join groups, get on the VONU podcast and join the Telegram group, or join us on End Evil on Thursdays podcast and get part of the conversation. Email your favorite content creator and offer to help them in some way. Give something to these communities, and these communities will give back to you. That's what I would recommend to folks to get started. It's not easy. I mean, there's the technological barriers, right? There's so much to learn technologically, and that's scary. But you learn by doing, right? You get in there, you're like, oh, I want to make a video. What does it take? I can do it with my phone. And then after you do a couple with your phone, you're like, oh, maybe I should try doing it with the laptop, So yeah, I guess that's
Hmm.
kind of where I'm at. I'm always trying to encourage people and motivate people to move forward in their plans. I think if everybody was doing what you're doing, or trying to, or even what I'm doing, the world would be an awesome freaking place. But we
Hmm.
got a ways to go. More people aren't doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the options and the resources will be available. The people who need to find them will find them, and eventually they'll hop in the Pasadena Committee of Correspondence chat and join the Second Realm. So, yeah, man, it's been great chatting, and I appreciate that you're still around doing it, because there's some that are out there still, old podcasters and stuff, but there's a lot that have also disappeared too,
Yeah.
understandably. But I appreciate that you're still here around doing it. So. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, Shane. It made me so, I remember like 2020 when I was recognizing right away. I was like, oh, here we go. This is like a 9/11, but like 3.0. They're coming out with this virus to scare everybody. And I started looking back at my old podcasts and favorite people, and I looked up you, and you were still out there, and we had a conversation, and I was like, yes, like real people that know what's up, that understand freedom are out there, and we care, and we'll never give up. So thank you, Shane, for fighting the good fight all these years, all these 30 years we've known each or 8, whatever it
Wait, I
is, who
just turned
cares?
30 this year.
Oh wow. Yeah, so I've known you
Yeah.
since you were 0, yeah, in my imagination, right? It feels like a long time, man.
Yeah.
It feels like it was so many years ago since we met.
It does, yeah. It really
But
does.
but good times, and thanks for joining me today and
Yeah.
setting
Multiple
aside this
lifetimes.
time. I really appreciate it. Check out libertyunderattack.com. Check out the VONU podcast and vonupodcast.com, and that Telegram channel. I'll have to get that link and put it in the chat when I play the show. I'll stream the show in a few Thursdays from now, and so there'll be an
Mhm.
opportunity in the
Gotcha.
chat if you want to show up, Shane, or for people to comment during the show, and I can share some of your links there too. Anything else you wanted
Sure, and I
to
guess
go ahead?
should mention yeah, should mention that there's a 10% discount code over at libertarianattack.com, and evil. So if your audience wants to go over there and check it out, or go make a purchase, then save a little money too. So yeah, I guess just that those are all the plugs, and I appreciate the invitation to come on. And yeah, I mean it's all about building up this parallel network. And I guess maybe because I don't make a lot of fiat money and I don't want to. I try to encourage people to pay, Bitcoin or Monero or something like that, or just, trade, barter. Because, like I could do a lot with, like $500, but I can also do all with magnetic motor too, right? Like just as an example. Like there's a lot of, there's a lot of stuff that money is kind of like it's there as an option, but like definitely not a preference. So, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I
Right. We
guess
didn't even get
that's
into
important.
talking
That's important
about
too.
crypto and Bitcoin, but that's a whole nother good conversation. And if anyone digs into your work, they're going to learn um, a lot about those things. So, because I know you've spent quite a few episodes discussing all these options and ways to go
Mhm.
about things. Anyone wants to know, the information's out there. So, thanks for doing all that great work, Shane. Much appreciated. Right on. Great talk. I guess we'll close it up, and we'll get back together soon before too long. Thanks, Shane.
Cheers from for your public.